There's not enough coffee on the planet to get me awake this morning. Well, good morning from an increasingly empty house just outside of Fort Worth, Texas. So I'm gonna first start off by saying, at least the last few videos, I'm sorry that it hasn't been quite as cinematic and it hasn't been the adventures, but we said from the beginning that we wanted to show you the sale of our house all the way through getting into the RV and going full time. And this has been moving week. So because of that, there's a ton of moving parts, things going to my parents' house, things going to Lauren's parents' house, things going to a storage unit, trying to get last loads of things like the washer run through so we can just kind of minimize what's going on in the rig. And then we're still trying to get organized in the rig. Eventually we'll bring you a full tour once we're completely moved in and it's all less chaotic. But today what we're gonna do is we've been exactly 1 month and we've spent about half of that sleeping and living in the RV. So we wanted to kind of do initially it was like an idea to do a post-shakedown trip, which really turned into more of like in 1 month of living in the RV about part-time. What we've learned, what we wish we would have known, that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be a little more shoot and talk, not a whole lot of cinematic. But I will tell you, we are on the verge of the weekend. And on Monday after the weekend, we are closing on the house. So that's gonna be the next video. So if you're interested in that process, stay tuned. Let's go catch up with Lauren and talk real fast about kind of things we've learned in the first month. Hi, Bailey. Oh, Mishka. All right, it's been about a month since we bought that thing and started selling that thing.
Okay.
In 1 month, what have you learned that you didn't know prior to owning it? Confusion.
Yes. I think I learned that we can function in a much smaller space better than we thought we could. And I think we learned that we have more crap than we thought we did. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, like Lauren said, there's a lot of crap in that house. And I don't think, even we thought we had decluttered last year.
We did. Yeah.
And it's not, like comparatively. I mean, obviously We're moving from almost 2,000 square feet into what, a couple hundred?
Right, and not all of it was crap, but we had more stuff than I really thought that we did.
I'm gonna pre-apologize to our parents who were dumping all the stuff into their houses to try and avoid a storage unit.
Yes.
But I think we've realized we don't need anywhere near as much to function. Now, a lot of those things are more sentimental probably.
Right.
And so they're not going away completely as attributed to the upstairs closet at my parents' house. But it's also not necessary to live your life. So,
at least for us.
At least for us, exactly.
I mean,
so,
mind you, we don't have kids, and there are a couple caveats to that, but
right.
For sure.
So, I'm going to walk you through just a few things here in a second about things we've learned technically from the rig, the truck, towing, how we live in the RV a little bit. Okay. And then, like I said, at the very end of this video, we're essentially going to start the next video. So if you are interested in watching us close on our house, and I don't know that we can actually film while we're signing the paperwork, but up to and then post we can. Okay. I know there'll be a lot of emotions, and we've said from the beginning we're not going to shield the emotions from the video. So stick tuned for next week as well. All right, so for the more technical kind of things that we've learned, one is that our truck has airbags, which we knew that, but trying to figure out the pressure to roll when the trailer's hooked up is kind of been a big deal. I've done everything from 5 pounds, which is the minimum, all the way up to about 85 pounds. Seems like about 60, 65 pounds is kind of the sweet spot where it's not so rigid that it's really, really bouncy, but it's also not so lackadaisical that you get a lot of chalking from the trailer. So if you have airbags on your truck, I'd love to know what you're running at, simply because I'm trying to figure that out. Now, obviously, a lot of that is dependent on your pin weight. Ours is a little heavier because we have such a large fifth wheel, but that's one of the things on the truck that we figured out. Other than that, the truck's been doing great. And then there's a bunch of stuff on the inside. All right. The importance of a checklist. Very, very important. We haven't had an issue up until we got ready to leave for Gulfport. This was my mistake. It was very early in the morning. I was going too fast, pulled all the slides in, and then because we were on grass, I had put wooden planks down underneath the tires because it rained most of the week, and so I wanted to make sure that we didn't get stuck. So all that was great and fine, except for after I pulled the slides in and I needed to get the chocks out from underneath the tires, I said, okay, well, I'll just pull off of these. I had completely forgotten I was still hooked up to electric right there. So luckily we got away with it. It just, the way that the pedestal worked, we just pretty much unplugged right from the pedestal. But because it was early, because it was such a fast-paced morning, if I had a checklist and I was physically checking things off, I probably wouldn't have done that. We got very lucky. I'm just happy I didn't, break the receptacle on the side of the rig. So one of the PDI things for us was actually this propane bottle. The propane bottle itself is fine. One of the first things we did is I installed gas stops on both bottles, but this portion from this green knob up into that regulator is called a pigtail. One of the first things we noticed is a strong propane smell when our tank switched over during a freeze, and turns out that this brass piece right here had cracked and was exposing the line and at the end of the line. And so we were losing quite a bit in transfer. That was just leaking out. But big kudos to the guys at Grand Design. They literally dropped what they were doing, got on a video conference call, walked through it. Then I took it to McLean's and they replaced the pigtail. But because I already made that phone call to Grand Design, it just made that process a whole lot easier. And now we are good to go. So what Lauren working on is right now is technically the horse RV, except they don't sleep in there. So it's just their transport. So we essentially, when we do the horse show side of stuff, run 2 trucks and 2 trailers. But if you had to say one advantage or disadvantage or whatever about living in an RV full time, but then also owning horses, what would you say that is or isn't?
I think it's easier than living in a house because when the horses are here, that's a lot of work. Mucking stalls, feeding, blanketing, all that stuff, going to the feed store. So it's a lot easier. It's also more expensive because now I'm paying somebody else to do it. But it's also easier to go ride because they're already at the barn. They're already where I need them to be. So that's a lot easier. So yeah.
And plus hopefully more horse shows.
Hopefully. That's the goal.
That's the idea. Also, that's the beagle from next door. He's rather annoying, but at least he's staying on his property this time. So first of all, pardon a little bit of the, not mess necessarily, but there's things sitting around. We're still very much so moving out of the house. One of the things that we're very, very happy with is actually the floor plan of this Solitude 390 RK-R. Any floor plan you're going to go into, especially not owning an RV before, and get a little hesitant in living in it full time. But we have 3 dogs. 2 of them can bounce wherever they want. One of them could probably land on the ceiling if she wanted to. But one's not very mobile. In fact, we'll talk about how we get him in the rig in a second. But the stairs leading back to the kitchen and then the stairs leading back to the bedroom, we were a little bit concerned about with our older, bigger Husky Klondike. But he has since figured out how to use his back legs and get up the stairs to the bedroom. Still won't do the kitchen, but we're not horribly upset by that. So, also the amount of propane we use when it's very cold outside. Everybody says you'll get 3 days out of 2 bottles. It's staggering how right they actually are. But it hasn't been too bad. I've kind of got a system now where I leave one open, one closed. When we run out of propane, I just open the other one, flip the switch valve, and then take a propane tank in. So, all right. The kitchen. We think we have a pretty good setup now, but I will say one of the big concerns, I like to cook. I find it relaxing. Plus, I think the food's better when you actually cook it versus just going to get it. But I was a little nervous about cooking in an RV. A big reason why we picked this floor plan was because of the kitchen. We've had plenty of room, and we've done some pretty extensive stuff, and there's been plenty of room in the oven, plenty of room in the stove. This Insignia residential style stove oven has been phenomenal. It holds its temperature really well because I've heard horror stories about the other ovens. This one's been great. And then plenty of storage. Now I will say one thing is obviously the back of this rig bounces a lot when you're going down the road. So we've just taken those precautions. So everywhere we look, like here's a great example, our silverware. So the spoons on top here like to bounce out, and then we have to take the lower cabinet off just to get them out from underneath the cabinet. But we've been slowly investing in all of the tension rods we can find. I literally just put that in there like that now, and it seems to hold everything in place very, very nicely. We'll officially find out if that works in a few days as we move to our first RV resort, where we'll be at a little bit more long term. So in the bedroom, one of the things that was on our PDI deal that when we took the rig back to McLean's briefly was a couple of motors, the timing was just really, really off in the bedroom Swintech slide. I ran a couple of timing things and it seemed to still kind of struggle just a little bit, but we took it in. They actually did a hard reset of the slide control. We dry lubed the rails again and all of the mechanics of the motors. And since then, knock on wood, we really haven't had a problem. So very happy that that's kind of been resolved, but it's something I'm always looking out for now, knowing that it got a little cattywampus so early on. All right, the master bathroom. By far, one of my favorite features is actually this shower. That was probably one of my biggest fears moving into an RV, but that shower is awesome. And then the last little PDI thing, so this is our air vent in the bathroom, but it looked like there was a crack across the plastic piece that goes above the vent. And yes, I'm going to replace that with a max air fan at some point once we actually get everything done. It looked like there's a crack, and you could actually, take the screen off and pick at it, and it felt like there was a crack. So I took it in. Ultimately, it wasn't a crack. During the construction process, one of either the Dicor or one of the sealants they were using in a tubed caulk gun had accidentally dribbled across it and dried and hardened. So it looked like a crack, felt like a crack, wasn't a crack. The guys at McLean's just cleaned it off and it was good to go. So inside we were talking about Klondike and the stairs. So he does struggle with these stairs. They're pretty intimidating for a dog that has a harder time with mobility because you can see through. Back a few videos ago, we talked about how we put the stair steps on. He still wasn't having any bit of it. And to be honest, it rained. It collects a lot of dirt. It collects a lot of water. So since then, we actually purchased, you can see it sitting back here, a dog ramp essentially. So we've been training him on that and he has pretty much got it down. So that's been a big help. The only downside is he can come down the stairs, he just can't go up them. So using that to help him get up the stairs, he's doing it flawlessly now. My only concern is if we level and we're much taller on one side and the stairs have to extend down, but this is pretty average. But he's been doing great with that. Last but not completely least is going to be the routine. The routine is so different in an RV than it is in the house, because when we would wake up, we would just let the dogs go outside and they would hang out for a little while. Now we have to take them outside. So it's back to like the apartment days when we were in college and a little after when we were younger, but we don't mind it. It's probably better for us. We actually get up and get moving a little bit versus hanging out and drinking a cup of coffee on the couch for 30 minutes. But just getting out of the routine of being so sedentary and sitting in the house and just letting them go do their thing. Now the downside is they can't go play. Now the downside is they can't just go play, but what we can do is take them to dog parks. The resort that we're going to be semi-permanent at, our home base or our hub, if you may, has a couple of dog parks, so we'll take them there if we need, but we'll find bigger ones, let them run, let them play, because Mishka's got a ton of energy. So other than that, I mean, again, we've only been in it for a month, so I'm sure we'll learn just as much between month 1 and month 2. So, but I'm very happy how much the dogs seem to be acclimating in the rig. They really have kind of all settled in, found their spots that they like to lay in and sleep at, which has been great. We are trying to figure out the dog bed situation still inside. We have one of the dog beds in the bedroom. It seems to be in the way a lot. We're thinking about doing those kind of plush, like muddy mats or something like that. That's just a very plush mat, because they don't really lay in the beds all that often unless it's cooler. So I don't know. We're looking at it. If you have dogs and you RV and you have something that you like, by all means, please let us know in the comments, because we are searching endlessly for that at the moment. All right, so that's what we've learned in owning the RV for about a month and living in it about for 2 to 3 weeks of that time. So if you have questions on some of the things we've talked about today, we'd love to answer them. The whole point of us shooting this is to hopefully answer questions if you're looking to sell your house, move into an RV full-time, whether it's stationary, travel, whatever, or we're going to do partial stationary. We'd love to help you out if we possibly can. So stay tuned next week, Sunday at 5 as always, as we take you through the closing of our house, and it all becoming very official. So until then, we'll see you next week, and bye, Mom.